Jamaica just lost nearly a third of its economy overnight. Can it ever bounce back from Hurricane Melissa? In this video, we are going to look at the staggering cost of rebuilding Jamaica after Hurricane Melissa, why it's far more than just repairing homes, and how this small island nation faces a crisis that could reshape global disaster finance. From destroyed infrastructure to climate-boosted winds, we break down what it takes to recover, why international support matters, and the hidden risks that most people don't realize. Stay with us to uncover the surprising twist that shows this isn't just a local problem. It's a global wake-up call. On October 28, 2025, Hurricane Melissa made a devastating landfall in Jamaica, striking as a Category 5 storm with sustained winds of around 185 miles per hour and an exceptionally low central pressure, one of the strongest hurricanes ever recorded in the Caribbean. The western part of the island, including key parishes like St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland and St. James, bore the brunt of the storm. These areas are critical to Jamaica's economy, supporting tourism, housing, agriculture and local commerce. Prime Minister Andrew Holness warned that the economic shock is staggering. Preliminary estimates suggest the damage amounts to roughly 28 to 32% of Jamaica's GDP. To put that into perspective, imagine nearly a third of everything the country produces in a year wiped out in a matter of hours. That's the reality Jamaica now faces. The question isn't just how to rebuild what was lost. It's how to rebuild stronger, smarter, and more resilient in a world where megastorms are becoming more frequent. So let's start with the magnitude of the devastation. According to preliminary government estimates, the physical destruction caused by Melissa will cost between $6 billion and $7 billion. Independent modelling firms place the range slightly higher, suggesting total property damage could reach $10 billion, depending on how infrastructure, homes and businesses are assessed. But here's the kicker. Insured losses are far lower, estimated at just $1 billion to $2.5 billion, because insurance coverage in Jamaica is limited. Most households and small businesses simply didn't have policies that would cover hurricane-scale damage. That protection gap means that most of the financial burden will fall on taxpayers and international aid rather than private insurers. The economic ripple effects are just as alarming. Analysts predict that Jamaica's overall output could drop 8 to 13% in the short term. That includes declines in tourism, agriculture and small business revenue, sectors that account for a large portion of the island's economy. Imagine the loss of livelihoods, the strain on public finances, and the social consequences of such a sharp economic contraction. And yet, as severe as the initial damage is, it's only part of the story. Rebuilding Jamaica won't be as simple as repairing what's broken. The costs go far beyond immediate destruction, and the challenges are complex. At this juncture, let's look at why rebuilding Jamaica will be so expensive. Several interconnected factors explain why the rebuilding process is both costly and complicated. First, the scale of destruction is unprecedented. Entire communities were levelled, particularly in towns like Black River in St. Elizabeth, where homes were stripped to their foundations, roofs were torn off, and roads and bridges were washed away. Electricity and communication networks remained down, making coordination of relief efforts incredibly challenging. Second, the lack of insurance coverage creates a huge financial gap. Without widespread insurance, the government must bear the brunt of the cost, while international aid only covers a fraction of the losses. This shifts enormous fiscal responsibility onto an already indebted nation. Third, critical infrastructure was heavily damaged. roads, bridges, ports and power grids will need complete reconstruction, while agriculture, a backbone of local food security and exports, has suffered devastating losses. Farmland was flooded, livestock perished, and key crops were destroyed. Fourth, resilience has to be baked into the rebuilding effort. The Prime Minister has emphasised that every repaired bridge, re-roofed home, and rebuilt road must be designed for the storms of tomorrow, not the storms of yesterday. Simply restoring what existed before would leave the island vulnerable to the next hurricane, which is increasingly likely to be stronger due to climate change. Finally, Jamaica's pre-existing debt burden limits flexibility. With national debt already high, taking on more loans to fund recovery will be politically and economically challenging. Yet, without borrowing or international support, rebuilding at scale would be impossible. So, with all these obstacles, how can Jamaica realistically tackle the recovery process? The answer lies in a combination of funding, strategic planning, and international partnerships. Jamaica has already tapped into some mechanisms designed for disaster relief. The country triggered a $150 million payout from a World Bank catastrophe bond issued in 2024, a financial instrument meant to provide rapid funds following a qualifying disaster. Jamaica will also receive $70.8 million from the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, although this coverage is limited to specific triggers. But even combined, these payouts cover only about $220 million, a tiny fraction of the billions in losses. Experts estimate that Jamaica will need at least $5.8 billion for new infrastructure investment, plus $1.4 billion for telecommunications upgrades if it hopes to match developed country standards. In other words, the shortfall is massive, requiring creative solutions and external support. The rebuilding effort is more than just construction. It's about transformation. Resilience must be the guiding principle. That means stronger building codes, better drainage systems, underground utilities in vulnerable zones, and resilient agriculture practices that can withstand future storms. Prioritization will be key. Housing and essential infrastructure must come first, followed by the tourism corridor, which is critical to Jamaica's revenue, and agriculture, which underpins food security and exports. The approach is phased: immediate relief to stabilize communities, short-term repairs to restore functionality, and long-term transformative rebuilding that strengthens the island's defenses. No single government can shoulder a disaster of this magnitude alone. The Jamaican government is pursuing public-private partnerships, PPPs, and foreign investment to help fund large-scale infrastructure projects. Climate finance instruments are also increasingly important, particularly since warming seas intensified Hurricane Melissa by roughly 10 mpm. By leveraging these partnerships, Jamaica can share risk, attract investment, and implement more resilient projects faster than government funds alone would allow. Here's the twist that changes the narrative. The cost of rebuilding Jamaica isn't just a domestic challenge, it has global implications. With damages estimated at $6 to $7 billion, equivalent to roughly 30% of Jamaica's GDP, absorbing the shock without fiscal collapse is nearly unprecedented. The protection gap means that many of these losses will never be insured, shifting the burden to taxpayers and international donors. If small nations like Jamaica cannot fully cover these costs, who will bear the financial weight of increasingly frequent megastorms? For international insurers and investors in catastrophe bonds, storms like Melissa rewrite the rules. Premiums will rise, investor appetite may decrease, and infrastructure projects will become more expensive and complex. The insured losses represent only the tip of the iceberg, while the uninsured economic consequences ripple outward. And it doesn't stop there. For the broader global economy, Jamaica matters. Tourism, exports, and migration patterns are all affected. A failed recovery could disrupt regional supply chains, reduce tourism revenues, and trigger debates about climate justice and the responsibility of wealthier nations to fund resilience in vulnerable countries. Rebuilding Jamaica isn't just a local necessity. It's a stress test for global disaster finance. Jamaica faces a monumental challenge. With billions in damages, infrastructure shattered, agriculture hit hard, and tourism threatened, the road to recovery is long and complex. Yet, with smart financing, strategic planning focused on resilience, and strong international cooperation, Jamaica has a chance not just to rebuild, but to emerge stronger, more prepared, and better insulated against the hurricanes of the future. This is a story of survival, adaptation, and innovation. A small nation facing enormous odds, and the world watching to see if it can succeed. If you found this deep dive insightful, hit the like button, subscribe for more videos exploring climate risk and global finance, and share this with someone who wants to understand what hurricanes really cost. In the comments, let me know, should wealthier countries take on a larger share of rebuilding costs for nations like Jamaica? I'll be reading and responding to your thoughts.